The Kidnapped Bride. A novel by Dr. A. Ahmed. This is an intriguing story which resonates with love, courage, resilience, and sacrifice. It is about an abducted Christian bride who was stolen by Muslim invaders from South Sudan and sold as a slave in Western Sudan. It has been written in English and translated into Arabic by the author Dr. Ahmed. Copyrights. All rights are reserved. No part of this book may be reproduced, stored in a retrieval system, or transmitted in any form or by any means without the prior written permission of the author, except by a reviewer, who may quote brief paragraphs for a review to be printed in a public newspaper, general magazine, school journal, or university article. This novel is a work of fiction, but the entire story is based on similar happenings which occurred in southern and western Sudan. All names, characters, places, and events are either the product of the author's imagination or used literary. Any resemblance to real people, living or dead, events or locales is merely coincidental. Chapter 21. The high-profile pimp lady, Bint Al-Zubair Pasha. Al-Zubair Pasha was the vilest person to walk the face of the earth. He was a Sudanese trader and slave trader who lived in Sudan a century ago. He had slave plantations and trained soldiers. His soldiers were called Bashbozak, which means we do not obey anyone but you. Their obedience to their leader, the evil slave trader, Al-Zubair Pasha, exceeded the obedience of the Nazi German army to the tyrant Adolf Hitler. That slave trader was the only Sudanese man to receive the honorable title of Pasha. Only the great Turkish sultans, such as Muhammad Ali Pasha, his son Ismail Pasha, and a few other prominent figures, received this honorable title. The reason such an evil person has such an honorable title in the history of Sudan is not as worrying as the fact that his evil practice was passed from generation to generation until the Arab Janjaweed inherited it. In his days, Al-Zubair Pasha with his army raided the cities and villages of southern Sudan, the western Darfur region, and the Nuba Mountains in the center of the country to obtain African slaves. He would bring these captive men and enslaved women to the western region of Sudan and keep them in barns, just as one raises animals on private slave farms to tame them. During their stay on these farms or barns, the poor Southerners, Furs, and Nuba people were subjected to torture that was beyond description. Men were castrated and turned into impotent eunuchs, and women were regularly beaten and gang-raped by Bashbozak soldiers. When Al-Zubair Pasha was sure that those poor people had transformed from ordinary human beings into tortured slaves, he would ship them to global slave markets in North and East Africa, the Arabian Peninsula, Europe, or the Americas. The largest slave market was in Zanzibar, in Kenya today, and from here Africans are called Zanuj or Negroes to this day. A firebrand was used to mark their bodies just like products before they were shipped abroad to slave markets. Even when the British officially abolished slavery in Sudan, Al-Zubair Pasha continued to practice it for an extraordinarily long time. The British forces faced heavy resistance from the Bashbozak soldiers. A century later, what Al-Zubair Pasha did was just a memory of the past, but the evil practice continues in disguise to this day in Sudan. Surprisingly, Al-Zubair Pasha is today considered one of the great heroes of Sudanese history. Also today, one of the famous streets in the capital city of Sudan was named after that evil man, Al-Zubair Pasha Street, and this, to the black African Sudanese, is worse than naming a road in the German capital city, Berlin, Adolf Hitler Street. A Sudanese woman claiming to be a descendant of Al-Zubair Pasha had a dream one night. In her dream, she saw her great-grandfather, Al-Zubair Pasha Wad Rama. He spoke to her, gave her his karama or charisma, and ordered her to continue the lucrative slavery trade of impure, maniacal Africans. He reminded her that Islam has not abolished slavery to this day. He said that there is a major branch of study at Al-Azhar Al-Sharif University called the jurisprudence of slavery. He reminded her that the slavery trade was forbidden by the infidel Christian Europeans and by the United Nations, who follow the laws of the Charter of Human Rights that were created by the atheist Western men, and were not a divine revelation like the verses of the Holy Quran and the hadiths of the Prophet Sunnah that permit the slave trade and the possession of the right-hand possession, who are slaves. After that, the woman decided to revive the slave trade of her great-grandfather, the brave Arabman, Al-Zubair Pasha. His grandfather is Al-Abbas, the uncle of the Prophet Muhammad. Before she saw the vision, the daughter of Al-Zubair Pasha was working as a fadadiya, which means she was a pimp lady in a brothel house. She herself was not a prostitute, because it would be a shame for such a noble Sudanese Arab woman to do such a vile practice. She is from the Shajia tribe, some of whom claim that the Prophet Muhammad was their great-grandfather. She owns about 50 prostitutes. These prostitutes came from different tribes in Sudan. In these brothels and taverns owned by the daughter of Al-Zubair Pasha, one can find all shades of skin, from dark ebony to light ivory. After she had her dream, Al-Zubair Pasha's daughter began trading not only in women's bodies but in their souls as well. As the word spread, other people began to take advantage of the new trade. Hence, one Arab woman revived the slave trade. Within a few years, her only brothel expanded, multiplied, branched out, and became as ubiquitous as the threads of a spider's web. The Janjaweed Muslim invaders and Hambata highway robbers began exchanging captured women with Bint al-Zubair for money. She does not accept stolen livestock or captive men, but only trades cash for beautiful captive young women and underage girls. If the girl is still a virgin, her price will be double. She uses her finger to find out whether the girl has a virgin pussy or not. Al-Hambati, the contemporary brave Sudanese hero, Wad Mahira bint Aboud, became a regular resource for this woman. He sold the two kidnapped African girls, Ayan and Olivia, to her. But not every girl who ended up in that woman's brothel was sold. Some girls, especially young Arab women, sold themselves to her. These girls had either become pregnant before marriage as a result of adultery, rape, or incest, or had been caught red-handed committing forbidden sex with their lovers. In each case, they either had to surrender themselves to their fathers or brothers to be slain in honor killings for bringing shame to their families, or flee their homes and become prostitutes. If a girl comes to the brothel of her own free will, she will be placed either in prostitution or in the homemade liquor trade. Making, selling, and drinking alcohol is forbidden throughout Sudan because it is a Muslim country. As soon as she enters that brothel house, society describes her as a fallen woman. Later, even if that girl visited the Holy House of God in Mecca, the Holy City of Jerusalem in Israel, or the Vatican in Rome, or washed her body in the holy waters of the Ganges Jumna in the city of Benares in India, or repented and became a nun, this mark of shame will never be erased. It's like a permanent henna tattoo, or the 666 mark of the beast that people can see etched on her face wherever she goes. This sign of shame is evident in the way she talks, walks, dresses, and acts. Quite simply, she will be a girl free of shame, who will not care about any moral standards of her society, and she can sleep with the devil if he wants to have sex with her and pays her the required price, which is the rate of her pussy for forbidden sex. Chapter 22. In the brothels of Bint al-Zubair Pasha. Olivia is not like Ayan, she is a city girl and a well-trained rebel soldier. While training in the jungle with the rebels, she learned how to free herself from the enemy's trap. On that fateful day, the evil Hambati man Wad Mahira bint Aboud hit her on the head with his Kalashnikov rifle and knocked her unconscious. Then he carried her on his shoulders and jumped with her on his camel, then used her body as a human shield to protect him from the bullets of her lover's gun. When she regained consciousness, she found herself in a dark, cave-like hut with no one around her. Her kidnapper wrapped her mouth with a thick cloth of a long turban. Then he pressed her hands and feet together and tied them with strong ropes. She found herself lying on the ground, her body only half covered. She was stripped of her clothes except for her tiny panties. Even her bra was ripped from her big breasts. The bites of hundreds of ants and thousands of mosquitoes torment her naked body. She is breathing extremely hard, and her head is pounding as if a hammer was hitting her. It took her a few minutes to remember her dangerous encounter with the 3 highway bandits. She remembered everything except what happened after she heard the Mawul shooting. Given her current situation, she guessed that she had somehow been captured and brought to this place. She also blamed herself for not responding quickly enough when she heard Mawul's gun being fired. In their original plan, she was supposed to pull out her gun and ask the evil Hambadi and his men to surrender. This was the plan to capture Wad Mahira alive. Olivia correctly guessed that the one who flogged the captive Arab men to death must have been Wad Mahira, and that he must also be the one who kidnapped her and brought her to this place. Her arrest does not matter to her as much as her thoughts about her lover's fate. Was Mawul killed by Wad Mahira's bullets, or is he still alive? Her worried questions brought hot tears to her beautiful eyes. She decided that she had to get out of this hut and escape from this place. Olivia's clever mind began planning a safe escape. It was still dark and late at night when she regained consciousness. She could hear dogs barking nearby. The barking of dogs made her imagine that she was lying in an isolated place inhabited by millions of dangerous brutes. If she can free herself, can she escape from those rabid dogs? How can one man like Wad Mahira provide food for so many pets? Olivia has no idea where she is imprisoned. Wad Mahira had brought her to brothels and bars owned and managed by the pimp lady, Bint Zubair Pasha. More than 24 armed gangsters guarded her homes during the day. During the night, more than 50 voracious Sudanese dogs are released to guard the place. The Sudanese dog is not a tame animal. It is as big as a tiger and as dangerous as a lion. The law in Sudan allows the possession of a guard dog. It is common for a thief to be reported killed by the teeth of a night guard dog. The dog does not know anyone at night except its owner. Bint al-Zubair's brothels are surrounded by a high wall of thorny trees. At night, half of those vicious dogs will roam outside the tall fence, and the other half will guard the interior area. This space contains many huts connected to each other like train compartments. In every hut lives a prostitute, or a liquor seller. Each girl was warned not to leave her hut at night. Her blood will be on her shoulders if she disobeys orders. So whatever a prostitute or maid wanted to do after the dogs were released, she had to do it inside her hut. If she remains confined within her borders, she is safe. If she had a client who was late until the dogs were released, she had to keep him overnight. The daughter of al-Zubair Pasha told every girl that even if Satan dared to come there at night with his horns on his head and a pitchfork in his hands, he would not be able to escape alive from those predatory dogs. Meanwhile, the second kidnapped southern girl, Olivia, remained with her hands and legs tied in the dark hut, thinking about how to escape from her place of detention. The first idea that flashed into her intelligent mind was to release herself and escape. While she was thinking of escaping, she was startled when a huge human figure entered the hut. The man holds an oil lamp in his left hand. The flame of the lamp, which is like a lantern, revealed his identity to Olivia. He is the devil incarnate, Wad Mahira. His blood-filled eyes looked at her half-naked body like a hungry dog. She leaned against the wall when she noticed in his right hand the same whip he had used to kill the captive and bound Arab Janjaweed men. Wad Mahira said in a truly angry voice, "This girl is the mother of a camel who has a big pussy. Someone has used her to try to kill me and my brave men," the Hambadi man continued, his voice hoarse like a ghoul or an ogre. "Don't worry about her, my brave hero," Wad Mahira bint Abood. "I will punish her for you and break her arrogance very soon," a woman's voice answered from somewhere in the dark shadow of the hut. Behind him, Olivia suddenly became aware of the huge figure of a woman as big as the hut itself. She wondered how such a large woman could get through the small door of the hut. The first explanation that came to her mind was that the builders most likely built the hut around the elephant woman. "You know what I will do to the bitch who disobeys me. I will sit on her body until she takes her last breath." Olivia knew that if such a woman's bulldozer carried out her threat, she would suffer a more painful death than the captive Arab man crushed by Wad Mahira's huge camel. This girl must stay in this hut for the rest of her life, must work as a prostitute, and be fucked by more than 20 men every day and every night, said the evil Hambadi man. His face looked terrified in the dim lamp. The obese woman laughed, but the sound was not pleasant. "Since I saw her face and measured her body, I knew the kind for which she was suitable. She has the perfect sexy body fit for a high-profile prostitute who could seduce the city mayor. I can make a lot of money selling her pussy to rich lustful men." Wad Mahira gasped sarcastically. He pointed to the half-naked captive girl and said, "Now untie her hands and feet from the ropes, remove the cloth from her mouth, and let her talk to me. I want to know who is the uncircumcised, Christian, infidel Southern man who killed 2 of my brave men with his pistol. I swear to my grandmother, the brave Sudanese hero, Mahira bint Aboud, that I will not rest until I kill him and burn his unclean body." Chapter 23. The Mother of Pussy and the Beastman. Olivia felt as if a sharp sword had cut through her naked shoulder and reached the other end of her bare back when the Hambadi man struck her with his long whip. She screamed loudly in unbearable agony. Another blow landed on her other shoulder and moved to her large, bare buttocks. She is only in her red lingerie. The pain was so terrible that it caused her to roll on the ground like a snake whose head had been hit by a sledgehammer. The human monster waited for Olivia's body to reach the other end of the hut. The fucking slut girl Wad Mahira was angry, his face red and wet from his fatigue. "You wanted to bring shame to my name. You wanted people to say that I'm Jamal, or the mother of a pussy killed Wad Mahira bint Aboud. If you do not tell me the name of your uncircumcised man who killed 2 of the brave men of the Hambada, I will flog you to death." As he spoke, he raised his whip again. Olivia knew that the monster meant every word he said, so to keep herself alive and carry out her escape plan, she must tell him everything. In a trembling voice that she barely recognized, the Azanda girl told Wad Mahira bint Aboud where she met her Dinka lover, Mawal, and what prompted them to come to the western region of Sudan. "I know every big hotel and little motel in this city," said the angry man, pointing the dagger at her face with his right hand and the whip with his left hand. "He is a left-handed man. If I don't find your sodomite man by tomorrow evening, I will come back here, cut you into little pieces, and burn your remains with fire." Olivia began to tremble and sweat when she felt the sharp edge of the dagger on her throat. The huge monster approached her and breathed in her face. "Yes, Jamal, you uncircumcised Southern Christian girl, if I do not kill your infidel man by tomorrow, I will slaughter you instead." Jamal or mother of a camel means a woman who has a pussy. It is trash language and is usually used as an insult. The founder of Islam, Muhammad, said in one of his misogynistic hadiths that a woman is like a she-camel, and a man can climb on her body and fuck her pussy with his penis or cock. Olivia closed her eyes to block out the wild man's view. She only reopened her eyes when she felt the sharp dagger lifted from her throat. Then the angry man, Wad Mahira, spoke over his shoulder to the large woman. "Now you can leave the daughter of Al-Zubair Pasha. I will stay here until the morning to make sure she never forgets this night for the rest of her life." Wad Mahira had emptied 2 bottles of strong local liquor into his big stomach before falling asleep. Then he fell into a deep sleep and began snoring like a camel. He became very drunk, and this saved the captive Christian girl Olivia from the painful torture of rape by such a brutal Muslim man. He's snoring, his voice like a wolf's howl, as Olivia sets into motion her escape plan. Before he got drunk and fell asleep, He had tied her hands and feet with strong ropes. She is now lying on her face and stomach. Olivia began to push her body with great difficulty towards the oil lamp. The flame of the lantern, like the flame of a candle, continued to burn and illuminate the hut with a dim light. Olivia could still hear the barking of the dogs surrounding the hut. She knew that if she could free herself, she would never dream of venturing out and falling prey to the sharp teeth of those ferocious brutes. Her intelligent mind decided to escape from the dogs as she slowly advanced on the ground. When she was near the lamp, she extended her long legs until they reached above the flame of the lantern. Then she lowered them slowly and carefully and placed them over the flame. She groaned as the flame began to burn her flesh along with the rope. The torment is extremely painful. She bit her lower lip and allowed her tears to overpower the ugly burning sensation. Olivia couldn't bear the pain long enough for the flame to completely burn the rope. She moved her legs away from the flames and began rolling on the ground to extinguish the fire. She waited some time before repeating the painful experience. On her second attempt, the rope broke. She was very relieved when her plan worked. She did the same trick to get rid of the rope binding her hands. This rope caused her more trouble because her hands were tied behind her back, but in the end, she was free. Although the burning of her skin continued to cause her severe pain, Olivia did not waste a single second to cool her skin. Her eyes looked at the huge, monster-like man lying asleep on his back. She asked herself how she could carry out her revenge on him. She saw his dagger pinned to his left shoulder. Around his waist is a large leather belt. Like a cat walking in the night, Olivia crept toward her archenemy and abuser. She used a military tactic to remove the dagger from his shoulder without waking him. The dangerous bandit was still asleep when Olivia stabbed his neck with his long dagger. He answered with a voice like the scream of a camel that had been struck in the neck with an axe before being slaughtered. Olivia snatched the dagger from his neck and quickly thrust it into his heart. The evil Hambadi man, Wad Mahira bint Aboud, died in a few minutes, and he was killed by the infidel Christian girl, the so-called uncircumcised Jamal, or the young woman who has a pussy that not genitally mutilated like other Muslim girls in Sudan. Chapter 24. The Fire of Hell of Sodom and Gomorrah. Olivia's relentless movements inside the hut worried some dogs wandering nearby. They started barking and howling like wolves, making the other dogs join them. Then the captive southern girl who had freed herself began to hear the same frightening sounds that the dogs had made when Wad Mahira and Bint Al-Zubair had come earlier to harshly interrogate her. She expected the evil woman to return at any moment to find out what had angered the dogs. She immediately examined the body of the slain monster and found the thing she was looking for. One of her military instructions was to not only kill her enemy, but also to relieve him of any valuables believed to have been stolen from her southern people. Olivia found the largest wallet she had ever seen. A quick glance at its contents assured her that she would be the richest woman in Sudan for the rest of her life. It contained Sudanese and Arab currencies, euros, and thousands of US dollars, in addition to pieces of jewelry. Most of these pieces of jewelry are made of pure gold. She wrapped the leather wallet securely around her bare waist. It was time for the second stage of her escape. She found her clothes lying in another corner of the hut, and put them on her naked body. She also wore her tall military boots. Having done this, she took the burning oil lamp, opened its lid, sprinkled the lantern's kerosene on the walls of the hut, and with her racing heart kindled a flame, and threw it against the wall. In less than 5 minutes, the entire hut was engulfed in flames. These huts were made of wood and flammable grass. Therefore, they are a fire hazard. Flames jumped onto the roofs of neighboring huts from the right and left. By the time Olivia opened the door to the hut and stepped out, more than half a dozen huts had been engulfed in flames. The dogs have wild eyes, running this way and that way. Many prostitutes ran out of their huts screaming and headed towards the main gate. The escaped captive, a Zanda girl Olivia, joined the other escaped girls and ran with them. By the time she reached the gate, every hut was engulfed in flames. The ferocious dogs ran for their lives as well. They left the headquarters like bullets and headed to the deep valley that separates the brothels of Bint al-Zubair Pasha from the urban areas of the city of El Fasher. If someone saw voracious dogs running and prostitutes following behind them, he might conclude that the human group was chasing the animal group. It is like the prophet Lot when he fled with his family from the burning cities of Sodom and Gomorrah. No girl dared to stop and look behind her, for fear of being turned into a pillar of salt. The red color of dawn mixed with the dark smoke from the massive fire. Olivia arrived in El Fasher city after running around with the other girls for some time. When they arrived in the city, the prostitutes were divided into 2s, 3s, and 4s. Olivia followed a group of southern girls until they led her to the main railway station in El Fasher. At the station, she separated from the prostitutes, who were being held captive as servants and slaves in the brothels of the daughter of Al-Zubair Pasha, and disappeared into the crowd. Meanwhile, her lover Mawal was forced to wake up from his sleep due to the screams of the guests of the African Lakunda, known as the El Fasher City Hotel. It took a few minutes to see what the commotion in the inn was about. The motel does not have separate rooms, and the guests sleep either in large wards, such as soldiers or prisoners in barracks, and most of them sleep on the ground in the motel courtyard, wrapping their bodies with dirt and covering themselves with the sky. The American groom heard shouts that a huge fire had burned half the city. The fire is heading towards them, and could start a fire in the hotel's wooden holds at any moment. Mawal dressed and quickly emerged from the Lakunda to join the other anxious guests in their collective evacuation to the street. He spent his first night sleeping in a crowded ward containing more than 40 inmates and remained awake. All the time, he fought with thousands of bloodsuckers, including mosquitoes, cockroaches, and lice. The small mattress he slept on had no bed, and was filled with hundreds of lice and ticks. So he only slept for a few hours during the morning when the sun rose, and the vampire insects slept, and the flies took over the daily shift and began flying like bees over the bodies and landing on the mouths of the inmates. There are also large swarms of ants and scorpions crawling and wandering around looking for someone to bite and sting. When the sleepy groom emerged from the so-called African hotel, he shuddered from the glare of the sky, the enormous tongues of flame flashing on the horizon, and he choked on the acrid smoke of the fire. The truth is that Al-Fadadiyya Pimp Bint al-Zubair Pasha owned the same Lakunda, and therefore it was located not far from the prostitution and slavery camps in which her captive females resided. As Mawal put his long legs in the wind, he heard fire brigade trucks ringing their bells and heading towards the flames. During his escape, the southern lover received advice from another African man running next to him that they should run towards the main railway station in case the fire consumed the entire city, as happened before in the city of Gedaref in 1955. At least, they could find a train there and flee from the fire that broke out in the brothels of Sodom and Gomorrah and safely exit the city. They could escape for their precious lives. Before the American groom reached the railway station, the fire reached the African Lakunda motel and burned it to ruins. By then, Mawal and the other guests had already entered the profound valley of shadow of death. It will be easier to cross a sea of burning acid or molten lava than to cross that dangerous valley that separates the residential city from the brothels of the huts of the daughter of Satan Pasha. All the city trash, dirt, broken things, car remains, pet carcasses, and other waste are dumped into this deep valley. This valley is teeming with wild animals such as wolves, hyenas, foxes, and stray dogs. Besides, night robbers and bandits use the valley as a hideout and attack those who cross it to the prostitution camps and liquor bars of Bent al-Basha. Every night, 1 or 2 citizens are robbed and sometimes killed inside that valley. By the time Mawal emerged from the other side of the valley, his feet were bleeding, bruises were all over his body, and his face was scratched by thorny bushes, broken glass, tons of rubbish, skeletal remains, and rotting animal carcasses. Only 1 hour after he and the other guests crossed the valley, massive fires reached it and consumed its bushes, garbage, and decomposing bodies. Therefore, hellfire became a blessing for some people, as it riddled the city with piles of garbage, and a curse for others, as it destroyed prostitution camps and huts of homemade liquor. On that day, some of the Shamashas became wealthy, plundering the vast estate of Bint al-Zubair Pasha, and stealing many valuables from her brothels and tavern huts where local alcoholic beverages were made. Somehow, the fire brigade was able to put out the fire before it reached the city. At midday, the massive brothel fire, set by the Azanda girl, fleeing traumatic rape and brutal murder, was finally brought under control. Meanwhile, estranged lovers Malwal and Olivia wander aimlessly around the railway station until chance brings them together again. The brave Azanda lover was the one who saw her American Dinka lover sitting alone in a chair with a table in one of the open cafes, and surprised him from behind. She quietly slid down and covered his eyes with her hands. She waited, breathless, for him to guess who she was. The boyfriend recognized his girlfriend's loving hands immediately. He jumped up from his seat, and his mouth shouted with joy in his heart, "Olivia." The beautiful Azanda girl jumped into the arms of the handsome Dinka boy, and the two lovers clung to each other as if they had been separated for a century. Chapter 25. Reconstruction of the brothels of Sodom and Gomorrah. The fire of hell returned the attention of public opinion in the city of El Fasher from the issue of the enslavement of the adulterous Imam, Abdulrazak al-Mahdi, of the Dinka girl Iqalaz, to the issue of the prostitution of the wealthy pimp lady, Bint al-Zubair Pasha. Before the fire that destroyed half of her illegal business, people believed she ran brothels and local liquor which is forbidden from making, selling, and drinking. But the appearance of some of her captive, homeless girls on the city's roads revealed that the daughter of Satan Pasha also runs the slave trade. Therefore, there is public pressure on the police force to investigate the rumor and put an end to the illegal activities of Bint al-Zubair Pasha. Because of this new wave of public protests, the proud pimp lady was arrested for the first time in her life. She was arrested while staying in her huge mansion, located 2 blocks from the residence of the mayor of El Fasher city. The truth is that the daughter of al-Zubair Pasha did not spend a single night in her brothels and slavery camps. She resides in the most urbanized, affluent, and safest neighborhood of the city. She comes to her brothels and bars of liquor shacks every day in her brand new Mercedes. Late at night, her chauffeur drives her to her luxurious palace in downtown El Fasher. She has 3 dangerous armed bodyguards in her car, and 4 more armed guards in her house. Even her driver is her bodyguard, and armed to the teeth. She has 6 huge guard dogs in her mansion as well. Several dangerous gangsters and 50 guard dogs guard her brothels. During her interrogation, al-Zubair Pasha's daughter admitted that she owned the huts, but said that she rented them to anyone who wanted temporary or permanent housing. She denied her involvement in any type of illegal activities, such as prostitution, slavery, making local alcohol such as Iraqi and Marissa, or selling drugs such as bingo, hashish, and shisha. Iraqi is like illegally made moonshine liquor in America, and Marissa is Daro, which is another locally made alcohol in India. If the tenants had turned her huts into houses for practicing prostitution, and making and selling illegal liquor and forbidden drugs, this happened without her knowledge. At the end of the day, the police deputy commissioner, the city mayor, and some other senior government officials had been bribed, and Bint al-Zubair Pasha was released from detention in less than 24 hours after her arrest. In the meantime, captive prostitute girls who remained loyal to the pimp lady were provided with temporary housing in some of the city's motels until their shacks were rebuilt. Some of the beautiful, high-profile prostitutes were forced to accommodate the homeless girls of Bint al-Zubair. These lovely beauties are reserved for wealthy VIP men and the cream of society. If any high-profile, high-priced prostitute refuses to accept this temporary arrangement. She risks losing her job, her life, or both. Once Bint al-Zubair Pasha cleared herself of the charges, she immediately began rebuilding her former empire. Every shack builder in the city was employed to rebuild the brothels and tavern huts where local liquor was made. Some skilled builders were even imported from neighboring cities. During this period, the prices of alcohol and drugs doubled, and prostitutes roaming the streets were asking 10 times their usual rates. These sudden increases have led to some serious social problems. There are police reports of individual sexual assaults and gang rapes and homosexual acts, and sodomy has become an open practice in workplaces and educational institutions. In schools, young male children are exposed to sexual harassment, abuse, and rape by their teachers and other older pupils alike. This time, the Pasha's daughter learned a lesson from her previous mistake. The builders were ordered to maintain sufficient space between each hut and another hut to prevent fires and complete destruction of the shacks in the future. She bribed the mayor to give her more land and bought some of the huts and squats of the outcasts who were living in the slums on the outskirts of the city. Furthermore, she purchased some privately owned fields and added them to her holdings. Construction took 2 weeks. Typically, a hut can be built in less than 4 hours if the builders are well paid, and in 2 days if prices are low. People prefer to build their huts in a fleeting time to avoid unnecessary expenses. The hut builder expects his employer to feed him and his helper boys for the duration of the construction project. The landowner must provide 3 meals, tea, coffee, snuff, and in some cases cigarettes for the builders of the hut. At every hour of the day, builders expect to receive cups of tea or coffee. No one in the entire world could consume as much tea as a hut builder could drink. People believe that every hut builder has a crocodile's tongue. Another problem facing cottage builders is that if the landowner has a beautiful wife or a sexy daughter, the work will be delayed indefinitely. No strange man is ever allowed to see another's wife, unmarried daughter, or teenage sister inside the restricted section for women without risking his life, except for the hut and gutia builder. For those of you who are not familiar with African homes, a gutia and a hut are the same thing except for size and height. The first is larger and longer than the other. The hut builder or the gutia constructor will never touch one of these beautiful, sexy women, but he gazes at their semi-naked bodies lustfully from his high tower during construction while his cock stands erect inside his jilbab like an English cannon during Second World War. Sometimes, he sings some vulgar songs to attract the attention of those hot girls, so they could see his dick standing cancelled beneath his white jalabia like the cannon of Ramadan. Usually, these young women did not wear abaya and veil inside their homes, but rather walked freely in the courtyards of their houses while each one of them showed the hut builder her lovely face, swung her huge ass, and revealed her large half-naked breasts. In any case, it did not take long for the daughter of al-Zubair Pasha to discover the cause of the devastating fire in the whore huts and liquor shacks of her mortal prostitution empire. Firefighters were able to recover the body of the brave and dangerous citizen of al-Hambadi, Wad Mahira bint Aboud, before the flames completely consumed it. He was the only person found dead inside a hut. The rest of the prostitutes, gang members, guard dogs and other domestic animals such as sheep, goats, lambs, cows, camels, donkeys, horses, and cats managed to safely escape from the fire. Even chickens and pigeons survived. But a few of the pigeons were burned and died. These doves spread flames through their burning wings as they flew from the heads of the big shacks to the tops of other small huts. Some chickens also spread fire while trying to escape. The body of the evil Hambadi man was transported to the hospital for an autopsy, the results of which revealed that Wad Mahira died of his wounds before the fire caused additional damage to his body. He was stabbed by his own long dagger into his neck and heart. The police authorities had no idea who his killer was, but his death was a great relief to the city's residents. the daughter of Al-Zubair Pasha denied any knowledge of who killed that brave man inside one of her huts. She cried in front of the police when she spoke of the heroic, generous, and noble deeds of the greatest Hambadi who ever lived, who was the inspiring hero, Wad Mahira bint Abood. As soon as the police left her palace, the Pasha's daughter summoned her gang members and told them who was the girl who had killed the brave man, Wad Mahira, set fire to her huts, and destroyed her empire of prostitution and the sale of alcohol and drugs. She promised a reward of £500 million Sudanese pounds, and some gold and jewelry to whoever arrested the Azanda girl who killed the brave Al-Hambadi. She gave her search team an accurate description of Olivia, and sent them to bring her out of hiding. Gangsters throughout the city spread the news that a woman had killed the dangerous Hambadi man, Wad Mahira bint Abood. Some fabricated details were added to the story. She was a professional prostitute and a thief. She killed him by stabbing him in the neck and heart with her large dagger, and then stole his huge fortune. Such information moved at the speed of light and spread like wildfire on a large scale in the regions of Darfur, Kordofan, and the Nuba Mountains until it crossed the Sudanese border and entered the country of Chad. Therefore, everyone in the city of El Fasher, its suburbs, and the other regions of western Sudan came to know that the dangerous bandit man, Wad Mahira bint Abood, had been killed by Jamal, a prostitute with a large uncircumcised pussy. In addition, she is an impure, infidel Christian girl from South Sudan.